Hey, we're on the internet.
Welcome back. It's been a while.
It's been roughly a month, which
Slightly longer for me.
seems like ages. That's right. I was here getting drunk with Susanna
Yes.
on
I was here just watching.
Christmas
and
Eve,
enjoying it.
as it were. So welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
How's it going?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, it's been a long time, and happy to just be back
I
talking.
think it's warmer
Sports.
here now
Yeah.
than it was the last couple times. It's definitely the fire pit. So,
In the enclosed space, probably.
So maybe we should say who we are and what this is and all that other stuff. So
Yeah, you can introduce yourself
This is
first.
SonarFeed. I'm Tom Biro, aka Bougie Hooli. To my left, your right is
Mickey Turner ESQ on the Twitters.
how many Instagrams do you have now?
Just two.
Just two. Okay.
I had to think about that, which is
just
probably means
checking.
it's one too many.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Two's manageable. You start to get like 5 brand accounts and
Yes.
whatnot on your phone. It's a little excessive.
I'm not trying to influence.
So this is SonarFeed. We are here at the Berliner in downtown Renton. Just I think ahead of the curve, maybe.
4th and Main, right?
4th Main. Yeah, you could take the bus. You could drive. Ample parking. You park at the library. Don't tell anyone I said that.
Yes.
So we have a few things we could talk about. We're getting a good complaint that we should move the camera up. I guess
I see. I told
people
you.
really want to see the top of my hat.
Told you.
Or the advertisements that are behind us. So we may enlist Eric to do that at some point for us. But wow. Nick says, to speak for himself, he's here for the basic instinct moment.
Wow. That's not going to happen.
That way. Oh, there you go. That's pretty good. Better. We do not have Mary Hart's legs. That's a really good Entertainment Tonight reference. I'm pleased about that.
That's
So-
it's a deep reference, but I appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. So it's January. We've had some practices this week. We have transfer speculation. We have not a lot of movement on the CBA negotiations that I can tell.
A whole lot of nothing.
There's a whole lot of nothing on a number of topics, I guess is maybe the best way
Yes, that's also true.
to address it. But things are happening. CCL is coming up really fast. So first match a month from today. For Sounders in San Pedro Sula
That
in
is
Honduras.
correct.
So both of the Tegucigalpa based teams are going to be playing their matches there. I don't know if you saw today that it's like faults in the foundation of the stadium.
Yes, it's
not good.
unfortunate.
So the two teams that play in that city both play in that stadium, and now they're going to have to play probably their regular season matches. It's essentially like playing in Portland. Like, they hate each other, Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula. Like,
Yeah.
the teams that are there, the fans that are there, they do not like each other at all. I don't know if that's good or bad for away travel. But there's a crew of folks that are going down, so that should be pretty fun.
For those who don't know, what's the distance between the stadiums? I don't know off the
it's-
top of my head.
Somebody said I feel like it's a 6-hour drive.
Woof.
But I don't know if it's 6-hour like highway drive. I think it might be some like local, regional kind of highway.
Thoroughfares and
yeah,
such
it's not
and-
like you hopped on I-5 and you get to do 75 the whole time.
Yeah.
Not that exists anywhere near Seattle anyway. So, but yeah, pretty considerable distance between the places. So, but what was fun was this week, it sounds like a bunch of people called because they had already made their flight plans to like hop from one city to the other, and they just changed their tickets for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I don't think everybody got away with that, but it sounds like they were slightly more flexible than most of the domestic airlines here in the United States, which is good.
Sad to say.
So yeah, so CCL coming up really quickly. Home CCL 27th, and then home opener just a couple days later on the 1st, and then another home match less than a week later, 7th, 8th, something like that. So it's Sunday, Saturday.
Yeah, that sounds. I think that's right.
So, real quick, 2020 is upon us.
Yes.
Now,
Fingers crossed, of course.
CBA expires end of this month.
January 31st.
Okay. So, I don't know if we should start there because it's sort of, the season is somewhat contingent on contract negotiations. You may know more than I do. I know ECS, we had spoken with some of the players last year, have had some conversations since. There was obviously some display type stuff that we did in the fall in support of the players, and that tends to be the direction we lean on these things, but I don't necessarily have enough ammunition or knowledge on what's currently going on.
Yes, the players put out they published a website about 10 days ago,
I think roughly, yeah.
Listing out their priorities, free agency, budget rules, money, and working conditions. And it was, it's just kind of a list of their priorities and what they would like to see done. MLS, the league, it has said nothing and will continue to say nothing. I don't think they've ever said anything regarding CBA negotiations since I've been following the league. Even, as fan, reporter, what have you, they just do not comment on that kind of stuff. And so there has not been much in the way of news, which is probably something of a good thing, because what would make me worry that there's not going to be a season starting on time is when the Players Association starts talking, because they're the only ones.
A lot.
Yeah, they're the ones that are going to say something, and they know that the player or the fans are on their side as far as supporting their what they want in the negotiations, by and large. So that's not really the issue. The problem is, well, not the problem. The issue is that the league, the owners, don't really care about that stuff. So I'm not sure if there's much pressure that they can exert on the league to get a deal done, especially given MLS's position in the sports landscape in the United States. The major leagues, quote unquote, the big four, they typically incorporate fan reaction.
Yeah.
And it's typically the fan side with the owners on those things for one reason or another, which I'm not going to get into here. But so it's kind of an interesting dynamic that it's, the fans that typically support the Players Association in this way. But again, the problem is there's not much pressure to be exerted on the owners, or what pressure there is just limited in scope, and in just the way that it's reflected in the media, because there is no media real coverage of the league beyond Sound and Heart, us, your standard soccer reporters, but it's just not something that's going to reach Sports Center as it would if it was going on in the NFL, where you'd have like 24/7 coverage. So it's good for what it's worth, but again, it's not something that's going to affect the owner. So this is all to say that there's not been much said, which I take as a good sign. And they are not negotiating this week, at least according to Jeff Carlisle of ESPN, who tweeted out that they're basically taking the week to kind of consider the proposals and what have you. Again, you're probably fair to wonder why they're taking a week off with a month left to go before the season starts, or CCL at least. I've put out some feelers to try to see where, like, the who's who in the negotiations, I'll say, for lack of a better word, are
serious.
Yeah, I know, right?
Happening.
I don't even want to know what's going on over there. Haven't heard back yet. I'm hoping, and they're not going to tell me anything.
Yeah.
But just to get a sense, like, are they confident? Are they less than confident? And just kind of get a sense that way. But as of this point, there's just it's gone radio silent, which again I will take as a good thing at this point.
I would think it's a good thing. I have a read.
Think
I guess,
so.
And again, ECS and some other groups are talking with the league about various stuff. There's obviously the code of conduct and some of the things around Iron Front, and we have a meeting a little bit later in the week that I'm hopeful will create some progress. It's funny, for the longest off season in a long time for MLS, they seem to have taken a break on a lot of different fronts. From a not just negotiation, but like progress of things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just a combination of the CBA negotiations being a thing and windows. I have no idea. Like, it just feels a little different to me, considering there's a lot going on. Do you think, not that these leagues by any means compete or are interrelated, but do you think that some of the progress we've seen with, like, the WNBA, for instance, there was just some new stuff
Yeah,
that came out this week
came
as
out
far
to
as
a-
like pay and how that's going to work, as well as the fact that there is some pretty significant expansion this year in MLS. Like, not that MLS doesn't have expansion all the time over the last decade, but
Yeah.
do you think that is a factor that they think about? Because like you don't want to turn off, especially like Miami, for instance.
Yeah.
It's been ever,
Yeah.
you know, that they've been working on that, and then you have a Nashville where they're working on getting, you know, a new park and all sorts of things, and still trying to push on season tickets. That is a factor they really consider when it comes to like solving this.
Yeah. Well, I think absolutely. The players, I think, have the leverage in this situation, or the cards, if you want to use a poker analogy. But MLS has the chips, the money, so they're the ones that it can outlast.
I mean, they just got like $500 million, so you know,
More, yeah. Between how many expansion teams have they announced in the last year? St. Louis, Sacramento, Charlotte. Austin is kind of a funky. We'll leave them out of it. But they did get some expansion money from the Crew, actually, technically. But
Right.
so we'll just go with the three. St. Louis was in at like 225. Sacramento, I think, was 250, and then Charlotte was 325. Got a massive increase because they wanted Tepper, who's the owner there, wanted in right away, and so we paid a premium to kind of skip to the top of the line. So that's $8 to $900 million in expansion fees, which they've picked up in the last year, essentially. So,
which I'm guessing isn't paid at once. It's staggered out.
yeah,
or whatever,
some pay. I've actually asked about this and your assumption is correct. They basically some pay in a couple of installments. Some spread it out over 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But you don't become quote unquote an invested owner in MLS until you pay
you've
off
covered it.
the entire thing. So there's less rights and money you're entitled to.
Well, at
So-
the end of the day, you're essentially licensing the ability to have a team.
Yes. Yeah. And you're owning a piece of the league
Right.
as it is.
Right.
So basically, you're buying a building and you're renting out a floor
So
to operate out of.
without you having a lot of actual dirt, you know, from folks. Or
Yeah, unfortunately
real comments,
not.
Your instinct says no news is
Good news.
all right news, at least.
Yes.
Okay.
Decent news. I would say we'll have to get through this week because apparently they're not doing anything. Hopefully, I will at least get something from my responses. At least, even like on a scale of 1 to 10, are you a 5? Are you a 3?
Yeah.
Something to give you kind of a direction to go into. So I think this week seems like it's going to be a quiet week for that. And then
do you
next
talk to
week,
like Harry Ship on that, or do you talk to other folks?
other folks. Although I've talked to Harry before
Yeah.
on that, but that was a couple of years ago. I'm trying to get an interview with him again, but I'm not going to get a whole lot. I'm trying to talk to other folks who are in the negotiating room, but we'll see how lucky I am at
Well,
getting
it's,
that.
It's interesting to see, and you mentioned sort of how other leagues work and where the fans lean one way or the
Mm-hmm.
other. Do you think the fact that like everyone doesn't feel like every MLS player is wildly overpaid
Yeah.
is the reason for that?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, just remember when the Sounders started in the league in 2009, and I think they had their first CBA a couple of years later. But the minimum salaries back then were like $12,000, which was like pretty much all of us here probably were making 3 or 4 times that amount, or hopefully somewhere around there. At least no one was making $10,000. Let's put it that way.
Well, the year that Zach Scott was making like 52, I was like, what? Like, that's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, it's back then the minimums were below minimum wage, which is just for a professional athlete.
So
is just a crazy thing to back up. And to be fair, they are now making in most places what would be considered at least a livable wage, if not comfortable.
And that's where I would say like a difference now versus 6 years ago, even like, let's call them your team superstars, or the really good players who may not be top 5 players in the league overall, but like a Rolled On does pretty well.
Yeah.
When you
especially
really
now.
start to relate to it. But if you looked at a player like him 5-10 years ago, he would not necessarily be anywhere near, like in percentage wise, like where he is now.
Yeah.
And it just
100%.
feels like some of the stratification and maybe things like the Generation Adidas and some of that other stuff, homegrown players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that stuff will continue to like make the league or make player salaries a little more viable.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks, but so no news is good news.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any possibility that we're gonna mutually agree to operate under the previous CBA thing, or do you think the players potentially play really hardball?
Hardball. So I asked Bob Foose, who's the executive director, specifically about that, if they would play under a CBA. His preference would be not to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, because that kind of dilutes at least some of the leverage. If the league knows that you're going to, we'll just kind of go along on the same path.
Yeah.
And the league's going to say, well, what's wrong with this deal that we presented to you now? It's along the same lines as what we're operating under now. So I think they will do that so long as they think that a deal is close. I don't think they're just if they're far apart, they're not going to just
do
agree.
it for the sake
If
it's something
not
like
a chance.
we're in the decimal point range, or it's like one free agency thing or whatever. Whereas I think the movement the last time on that free agency front, at least paying attention to when you saw like Brad Evans and other people who were like really, really vocal publicly, talk about it, that did feel like a major sticking point had been pushed out of the way. Now, whether that is wanting to be, pushed a little harder this time or not around is another discussion. But
well, I would say that free agency is the least of my concerns about them getting to a deal. I think because right now it's 28 and 8, 28 years old. You got to have 8 years of MLS experience. I think all the parties agree that number can come down.
Well, especially when you're signing 17-year-olds now,
exactly,
all over the place.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll get below, say, 26 or 25, because that's, again, to be fair, or at least to present the other side of the argument, that is not a system that is in place in any other leagues.
Right.
In the United States now, you may have a problem with that issue on principle, but at least in the United States, most NFL, there's the 4 or 5 year deals, and then you're a restricted free agent. Same with the NBA.
But this is where baseball
Major
has
League
the,
Baseball arbitration.
Yeah.
So nowhere is it you're 19 years old and you're a free agent in the United States. So that's not going to happen. But so I think, and I don't think the Players Association is asking for that. So I think if they can get down to 26 and 6 or somewhere around there, they would be satisfied. Especially because there are still some other restrictions as far as how much money you can make going to another team. Now they'll probably try to, move those too, but I think they want to get the age and the service time down, and then they'll consider that a win. And then in the next CBA, they'll try to move some of that other stuff.
And frankly, and this is where, you have a particular specialization that you understand how this works because you understand the global soccer landscape. It isn't necessarily as mission critical, I think. I mean, again, players want it. I get it. As a lot of other things, because frankly, if you're Jordan Morris, France calls for you, and he's like, later.
Yes.
So, it's just a different dynamic. You're not as worried about, somebody going from the Super Bowl whoever wins the Super Bowl will get rated.
Rated, yes.
Essentially, that's a thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't work quite that way domestically within MLS.
Yes. That's 100% right. It would only affect players who are out of contract who have options to go elsewhere. And Jordan Morris would have an option to go elsewhere on a free transfer, and that has happened on occasion, where players will just say see ya and just bounce. But that happens everywhere. But the issue is most MLS players don't have the option to go overseas because they're not of the sufficient quality to garner those types of offers to raise their asking price. But there are certain ones who are. And as the league improves and as academies develop further, you are going to start seeing those players. And that's why you're not going to see free agency at age 21 or something like that. It's just not going to happen.
So let's maybe, we're talking about contracts and things, let's maybe bridge into the Samba Kamara deal today for the Revolution that they cut his contract because his visa application was denied.
I read that. I don't have any specific information on that or legal
just interesting,
but it's interesting.
Came from League 2 in December, 8 years, 12,000 minutes in second, third, and fourth divisions.
It's interesting that they put that in the release, by the way.
Yeah, gives them some TAM, but again, not knowing specifics about this, but understanding the contract dynamics and how visa applications and things work. We obviously don't know the specifics in this situation. It sounded like at one point he had been arrested for something, and people were speculating that that's what it was. Any just thoughts on that? Like, do we think the political climate in the United States has anything to do with this, or is it maybe a one-off?
Is he? Where's his native country point of origin?
Please.
My initial my initial thought is that it doesn't have anything to do with the political climate per se, unless he is from one of those designated countries that our dear leader has deemed to be a danger.
He is.
But there's like 4 different qualifications you can meet to be granted the P1 visa, which are typically, as it pertains to a professional athlete, very easy to obtain, because how many international players are there in MLS right now? Hundreds.
Yeah.
And so these things are granted as a matter of course. So this seems to me to be a specific situation, which we just don't know.
He is French.
Yeah, so there's zero chance that this has anything to do with the political climate per se. Well, I shouldn't say zero. I'll say very little chance.
But this is, I mean,
it doesn't make any sense
in our ECS Slack
in that context.
had brought up Nuhu that like continuously there seems to be something up. And who else had this? Buana, I thought. Oh, well, there was a concern at one point about him leaving to go to Canada.
Or Mexico, because he's played in Canada.
Yeah. I don't know. And I guess that's where it's like, are we really worried about this? Are we just trying to be risk averse? It's just interesting to me because like that's something where by the time a team signs a player, you'd think they'd kind of know,
But you don't. You have to sign the deal before you can get the P1 visa. Although the deal's only effective once you get the P1 visa. So,
go figure.
Yeah. Which is why they canceled the deal. So there's clearly something behind the scenes that happened with this player specifically.
Yeah.
Whether we will ever know that is another issue. I'm sure the team doesn't want to affect any future transfers by airing dirty laundry about players. But there is clearly a reason. There's another player who couldn't get his visa. I think Corey Burke from Philly Union. He was supposed to join the team last year. And he played for the Philly Union the year before. He couldn't get his visa approved and basically was stuck in Jamaica for a year. I've actually heard the reasons why he was not. I'm not going to air those, but there is a reason why he was not unable to get his visa, and he still is not able to for another couple of months. But it does happen.
Yeah.
It's rare because again these things are granted pretty easily. So you have to do something to not get it.
I partially bring this up just because current transfer news, but I've heard a lot of speculation about like Brexit and what that's going to mean from like a international standpoint. And is there, because you've heard for years that randomly somebody just isn't able to get their permit to, it's some mega star that wants to come in and play in the Premier League, and it's like, nope, denied, and it's because
it's Corey Burke.
Whatever.
I want to make sure
for whatever reason. But I think people are just curious about this sort of thing, and is it a one-off or not? Frankly, I just want to see yet another player whose last name was Kamara in the league, and then we should just assemble them all on the same team. And make it fun. Eric,
I mean, it's too bad to whatever the reason is.
Okay,
we just don't know.
Good thought. Yeah. Eric here in the house just asked a question: is Nashville going to be in Atlanta or a Colorado in terms of budget and changing the owner votes on the CBA?
All right. So Nashville has a very rich owner, John Ingram, and I think the Wolves who own the Minnesota Vikings are a minority owner in the team. Well, thank you. Yeah. So they have plenty of money. The problem for them is that their stadium situation is extremely unsettled. They thought when they were granted the franchise, the vote sailed through to get them in to grant the stadium. And so, MLS said, "Oh, someone's giving us $300 million. Okay, you can come into the league now." And Nashville is a place where it fills a market for them as well. The problem for them is that the lawsuits then started, and it is far from clear that they're going to get that over the line anytime soon. So they're going to be playing in Nissan Stadium, I think it's called, where the Titans play.
Yep.
And
it's a great park. not mentioned Nashville. It's
I've
a
not
super
been
cool
there.
place.
But it's also 70,000
Yes.
seater, which they have sold less than 10% of the season tickets for. So that's a problem.
It's better from when they were at like 4,852.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
They are. So that's a major problem. I talked to one of the reporters out there actually for just for a podcast because I was interested in the story, and it sounds like they've done very little marketing.
Yeah.
Kind of misread what they needed to do as far as getting engagement with the local community, and then there's some other issues with just the fan base or the sports fan being slow to warm to teams. And I think this happened with the Predators. They said as well.
It got bunkers.
Yeah,
which is, I think,
when they started
the
to
reason
win.
they wanted to do this. Yeah. Like they became like a defensive powerhouse, and people got into that. So it's also that arena is like downtown core. This stadium's just outside, but like it's walkable. Like it's not that.
It's
far.
not a problem. That's not the problem.
I think I have a friend that is a keeper coach, is like his weekend kind of side gig there, and he's like, it's gonna be fine. Like there's a lot of soccer there.
Yeah.
A lot of youth, playing. Not everybody lives in the city proper, and traffic is bad.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it takes a hot minute or not. I think the fear here is it? It's not Dallas because it's not that far away.
Yeah.
But like, does it look like Dallas in the stadium? Like that's terrifying.
Yeah, I think it. As you say, it'll take some time for them to warm to it, and they didn't do probably what they needed to do to engage the fan base as far as the marketing aspects are concerned, and the lawsuits I'm sure haven't helped as well. But yeah, that's the worry, is that you're going to end up with 10,000 people in a 70,000 seat stadium, in New England, which is not a look the league wants or expected based on the
league wants again. Well, especially
for an expansion team, and second chance to make a first impression and all that stuff. It's worked in some places. Kansas City, they got the reboot and that worked fantastically. It didn't work as well in other places. Columbus, when they had when their Anthony Precourt came in and they did the redesign of the badge and all that stuff, that didn't work. So they're trying, Columbus is trying to get a third bite at the apple, which will probably work, but you just don't want to start off on a poor foot like that, and it looks like it's not going to be great, even if things pick up in the first year, and that's probably why they put Atlanta in the first game, to make sure that they could pop a big number. Although apparently they're not selling to Atlanta fans or to the Atlanta fan zip code, because they don't want 20,000 Atlanta fans and like 5,000.
Which I get.
Absolutely. You don't want that, but that is a problem.
But the thing is, that visual would actually be good.
Yes, it'd be better than having 8,000 fans in a 70,000 seat stadium, which is what they are looking at least at this point. Now, I think those numbers will, they'll probably get around 13 or so, 14, but that's still not. That's not
in
good.
that visual, and that's the thing where even if you look at like the championship, for instance, in England, like there's teams that are pretty good that are selling out like 11 to 14,000 seat stadiums, and it's fine, but they've built them so it like fits that look. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. So has the money to be in Atlanta, may or may not actually spend that way.
Yeah, I think they're gonna take it easy on the spending front for the first year. Whether that means that they end up changing the votes on the CBA, I just don't have enough information to say.
Okay.
And it's just too early. They haven't kicked the ball yet, and so they're I'm guessing they will be on the conservative side just because they are new owners and given the issues that they had. But I don't think it won't affect the CBA necessarily one way or the other.
Plus, they're going to be in a different half of the league every year at this point. We'll just keep
switching them
back and forth.
God.
So let's maybe dive into Sounders.
Mm-hmm.
You were at first practice. I was at first practice.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good time. Well, first weekend practice,
yes.
as ECS called it. weekends are better for those things.
Yes.
That was fun. Obviously, there were a handful of key players missing because of things like Camp Cupcake and visas and injuries and all sorts of other things. That was fun. The weather, generally speaking, was good.
I was not prepared for it.
Yeah,
I
it
did, footwear,
cold.
very questionable footwear choices for me.
A little sloshy, but it wasn't pouring.
Oh no,
So
it was fine on that score.
that was good. I had a couple of cool takeaways. It was frankly fun when they like moved a lot of us from the end, sort of the end line, their end line to the sideline. We were hanging out where it was like forwards against defenders, like the one big goal and then the two smaller goals on the other end. And Preki running the drills, and Preki basically just gave defenders shit the entire time. Like you could tell, and it was like whoever won the game had to, the other team had to do push-ups.
Yeah.
And he was just like enjoying the fact that defenders were doing push-ups over and over again. So it was fun. There's not necessarily a lot to take away. It was like no real contact or anything.
No.
But I got to tell you, watching Raul out there just like mess with people in like a short field, like just grinning. The whole time.
He was having a good time.
Yeah.
So was Nico, for that matter.
Yeah. They were, the two of them shouldn't be allowed in like a 2-on-2 drill together.
Right.
Like, that's just not fair. But they seemed to be enjoying themselves. It was neat to see, like, a lot of the kids were out there. It was funny because when we had flags on kind of the walkway and they were all walking through, and it was like half of the Defiance roster basically, like, walked past us, which was fun. Arriaga walked off at some point with what appears to be a leg injury. Don't know what that is.
I haven't heard anything, but I haven't heard anything that indicates that it's a problem.
Yeah. Well,
unless it's a serious issue, they have a month to sort it out.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Anything? I know you either did some one-on-ones or you had some interview time with people. Anything you took away from the first few days of practice? You were out there earlier in the week too.
Yeah. I was. The first week is just you're not going to get a whole lot of a whole lot of information. You're still trying to figure out, put names to numbers.
Yeah.
For that matter, and they're missing.
It's a lot of double digits that start with 5 or higher.
Yeah, exactly. And wow, this is.
If you like lime.
Wow. It's very festive looking. I'll say that.
I love citrus.
Your stomach's not going to love it.
I'm going to take a photo of this.
Yeah. While you do that, I didn't see. I thought Shane O'Neal, the new center back, looked pretty decent. 27, yeah. He's actually he had some pretty nice goals. Justin Dillon actually, I thought he stood out to me.
Yeah. In fact, Justin Dillon in those drills as a defender. He slide tackled a couple of people, and we were all like, "Oh!" And Preki was happy about that.
I like Dillon's his game, his skill set. I think it's something that they could definitely use, especially with Bruins out until probably April, I would say. Which is he'll probably miss March basically and be back right at the start of April.
He did a good thumbs up.
Yeah, but he's still on the side. He's still got some time. So Dillon is someone I think can be really useful for them. And I think he looks like a player, so we'll see if he can translate what he does in practice and with the Defiance to what he does with the first team. Let's see. Azrael Gonzalez is pretty good. Scoring. I think he scored a couple of goals earlier in the training in the short side of scrimmages that they did earlier in the week. Shannon Hopio looks really good. I think he's probably the one that's going to get signed.
You do?
From the Defiance this year. I think he wins a first team contract.
A few years in the making.
Yes.
At some point that had to run out, but I mean we've talked about him before. He was in the Real Madrid youth camp or whatever. I don't remember even what age it was, but he was in their top 64 global youth players or something. That's nuts.
Yeah, he's got a lot of talent. So I think he is the one that is likely to get signed.
Okay.
So the most interesting thing then I would say out of all of that is Sam Rogers.
I was just going to bring that up.
And I'm sure everyone is most interested in him.
Schmetzer comments were stern.
Stern, yes. So for those who I'm sure all of our listeners know most of his backstory, but he signed in 2017 out of the academy, decided not to go to college and had a scholarship too. Yeah. and had a scholarship to Villanova and decided to sign with the Sounders. I think most of us thought that he was going to be on the fast track to the first team after 2017. Had some injury issues and sickness and stuff like that.
Some interesting hair choices.
Yes. Well, I wish I had that problem. I wish I had that problem. And then during the summer last year, did a trial to Belgium, Standard Liège, and basically had a trial. And the Sounders probably would have sold him if an offer had come back that they liked.
Okay.
In fact, I know that for a fact. They would have sold him if they got something that they were okay with. Didn't materialize. He came back, played with the Defiance, and he's just never really put it all together as of this point. And he's still super young. He's 21, I think, now. And center backs, as we all know, they last much longer, especially in MLS. They can play at a 34, 35 at a pretty high level. So he's, in theory, has nearly 15 years left to play in MLS before he would consider his career potentially over if he plays at a high level. So Schmetzer, as you alluded to, had some very stern comments. Basically, I actually asked him that question, which funny.
Like, look them up. Yeah, they're pretty specific.
Yes, he basically said this is not do or die. I won't go that far, but this is make or break, essentially, at least for his time with the Sounders. He needs to grab, Schmetzer said he needs to grab a hold of this opportunity. There are now 2 center backs on the roster signed, and so that means there are 2 open spots at this point. Even if they were to sign a high-level center back, there's still a spot for him to win. And so he basically said he needs to decide if this is what he wants. And he's got all the skills. He's got the size. He is a big, big man. And so got the athleticism. He's got some good passing as well. So he just needs to put it together at this point. And he's going to get the opportunity to do that. They've got a scrimmage with Penarol sometime this week. Then I think they have a friendly with Sacramento as well coming up as well before they go to Mexico. And then they'll probably have some, a friendly or 2 or scrimmage or 2 down there. So he's going to see a substantial amount of playing time. And it's there for him to take advantage of. So we'll see if he is able to do so. But I think we're closing in on the nearly the end of his window with the Sounders.
Yeah.
He may go somewhere else. This happens all the time. Players need change the scenery and need to go somewhere else.
That's like what you saw with Kovar. It's like here, and you were like, there's something with that player.
Yep.
And like you looked at him on S2, and you're like, you are better than almost everybody on this team.
Yeah.
And had his looks, his free kicks were really pretty solid. Maybe some of the better ones we've had in a while.
Going forward, he was very good.
Was just good, but like just couldn't crack that. Yeah. But did his trial, played it.
Loan with LAFC.
Yes, but he was out at Hibernians or someplace like that, did a trial or something out there. I think you end up with that same kind of scenario. Again, retired, frankly, a lot more early than I expected him to. But maybe just decided, like, I don't want to run the USL circuit for my life. Or whatever that is. Yeah.
He's got Stanford education, so he's probably, it's like, he didn't want to spend the formative years of his work career as you said, hanging around the USL circuit when he could be, gaining experience in the financial world or tech world or what have you. And so, that was it for him. So Sam is kind of at the same place, I would say. Maybe a little. That's probably a little harsh on Sam, given he is younger and at a position where
you don't
develop
think that's
later.
A next couple months thing. You think that he's got this year?
Yeah, I'd say this year. They probably want to. If he shows, they will sign him in February.
Women have to sign someone.
Yes.
So might as well sign the Seattle kid to your team.
Yeah, I think he has this year, and he may decide that he wants to go somewhere else. I'm not sure what this contract situation is. I know they picked up his option for USL, which is, I'm not even going to get into that.
Was he in that program, though, where they, like, paid for your school? Or
I'm sure that was part of the deal he signed. But, yeah, so this is, he may be on a free or set to be on a free agent, at least as far as being out of contract.
Right.
And may look to go somewhere else. but he's got all the chances in the world to get it done.
So what else? I guess there's some rumors.
Yes.
There's like, is there a CDM or is this guy a forward?
Oh my gosh.
Or what was? I saw a joke somewhere. Someone was like, apparently half of the people in Brazil are named this.
Yeah. Oh, when I first saw it, I immediately obviously went to Wikipedia to see, and there were like 15 of them, João Pedros as who we're talking about,
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And they were all footballers too. That was the other thing. It was not like swimmer, professional wrestler,
singer,
singer. Yeah, they were all footballers. But it sounds like that's getting close to being done.
And that's a loan.
Yeah, the rumor is that his valuation's like around $2 million, 2.5, and the Sounders are going to try some LA Galaxy things and structure it where they can pay half of it up front, maybe structure it as like a loan fee or some such thing.
And he's playing in Argentina?
Yes.
Okay.
No, yeah. Yes, I believe so.
I think that was the photo. I think he's playing against Boca, so maybe.
Yeah.
But
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But either way, it sounds like he is ready to move, and they are ready to have him. So now the discussion is, have the Sounders picked up another Emmanuel Cecchini, who I don't think they brought in to be a 6, but that was the prevailing wisdom was that they brought him in to be a defensive midfielder, and he just did not gel with the Sounders for one reason or another. And they're obviously looking for a solution to him. He's listed on the preseason roster, but has certainly not been in camp.
Yeah, did not see him.
Yeah. Oh, and he wasn't. I don't think anybody expected him to be in camp, unless things completely fell apart. So they're working on a deal to.
They've got to
loan
have
him out.
They've got to have a Tomas like every season. Yeah. Like, there's just somebody that you're like, oh, that guy got 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And he cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Great.
So I think what they'll on Cecchini, just his time is obviously done with the Sounders.
Yeah.
I think they will likely either find him loan. His parent company, Malaga, I think, they're not going to take him back beforehand because they were trying to shave his salary in the first place. So the worst case scenario would be the Sounders would buy out the rest of his deal and just eat the cost, and he would essentially become an MLS player, and they would just try to find a place for him to play. Yeah, the rights somewhere. Yeah, it happens. There would be their one-time buyout essentially.
So
Pete. But I think it's fair to say he's played his last not minutes with the Sounders.
So speaking of which, not to go too far from Sounders, Tyler Miller has a new home.
Yeah,
that was actually a little surprising. Although Minnesota was like, we're not paying you designated player money after one season when you shouldn't have been the goalkeeper of the year.
Yeah. I can't remember what their other keeper was. He was a good keeper, but
Manone.
Manone. Yeah. But they're just, you're not paying, unless you're insane or Colorado, you're not paying a goalkeeper DP money. I think the league learned their lesson, especially, for whatever value Tim Howard may have brought off the field, which is debatable. He did bring some.
Totally.
And Manone is certainly not going to do that, nor is just about any other goalkeeper in the world, except for your top 3 keepers who aren't coming to MLS anyway.
There was the rumor that they were going to bring in Joe Hart.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. He's okay. He would be a close to DP. I mean, maybe they can get him for like 1.5 and then buy him down. But you're spending $1 million on Tam. That's insane. But Miller, he's always valued himself higher than what the league has.
Yeah.
And that's why he didn't sign with the Sounders right away, because he wanted to, and he wanted to go overseas and try his luck there. That didn't work out. He came back, got some time and reps in with the Sounders, did well, and moved on to LAFC. Had a good season with them, even though or 2 good seasons, I should say, with them, even though things didn't end up how they wanted to. Ended up how the Sounders wanted it to. But he's always valued himself as a quality keeper and wanted to be compensated as such. And it sounds like he's going to be getting a decent contract from Minnesota. And it works out.
Spend a lot for, was it 400?
300,000, I think, which is which is great. And Miller's a good keeper, and Minnesota was looking at spending well over TAM money to keep Minone there, so they probably got at least an equivalent keeper for half the money.
Right.
So good deal. It seems like a good deal all the way around. And LAFC got some money, and allocation money on the top of the deal. And frankly, they flipped them for. They got a better deal out of than the Sounders did, who basically I think probably because they did him a favor, essentially, more willing to not sell him for probably what his value was. So maybe the Sounders got a little hosed on that deal, all things considered. But that's the way it goes sometimes. And they got some goodwill, I guess, out of the deal. So you can't really bite on any players with goodwill. But
so coming back to Sounders, do you think, because other teams have made moves, it's not like nothing is happening in the league. We haven't seen anything mega except Chicharito, really.
Yeah.
That's the play, which I don't know if you're Los Angeles, like, I don't know. That's like you pulled a card out and you're, LAFC's like, oh, because if you like even just look at the demographics in Los Angeles in general and like how that's shifting back and forth, I would say LAFC was blowing the Galaxy out of the water for 2 years.
Yeah.
And
even with Zlatan.
Yeah, like just different place. Chicharito, like that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, I mean he'll be good. He'll be. I'm talking on the field. Let's start there
for sure.
So he's going to be good. He's still a top class player, especially in MLS. He's not Zlatan, who is an athletic and just a freak of nature.
Dude's taking 40-yard shots.
Yeah,
but Chicharito, with like decent midfielders or people that can feed him, like. Oh, that's a pretty deadly player in MLS.
And so that's the difference between him and Zlatan. Zlatan didn't need that because he could do it on his own. And the Galaxy have brought in Alexander Katai and someone else whose name escapes me at the moment. And they had Jonah Dos Santos, and they still have Sebastian Lletget. So they'll have a midfield that will probably be able to provide some service. I don't think they brought in a real 10, like a real Nico top line player. So that's where I'd wonder if they have really the top level service to get to Chicharito to make up for the fact that they don't have Zlatan, who could do it on his own. But obviously this is more of this is as much an off the field play as it is on field play.
Marketing 101. Yeah. From that standpoint. I am happy that he is now the highest paid player versus Michael Bradley. Which how did that even happen? Like,
yeah, I mean,
personal feelings aside, like how is that the highest?
Or how was he's not that
like,
anymore?
That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. Well, definitely not now.
Yeah. Well, he took a TAM deal because obviously everyone remembers that his option would have been exercised for $6.5 million if they had won MLS Cup.
They've got some interesting players though. They've got Lletget. They have Sasha that they had just brought in. They have Pavone at forward. Yeah, I mean,
they're still trash in the back.
They are. I mean, it's frankly LA in general. Yeah, it's been kind of trash in the back. But when you score 9 million goals at LAFC, it doesn't really matter if you're going to let up a goal here and there. But
to your point, they were rapidly falling behind LAFC in just kind of the consciousness
in the neighborhood.
Yeah, in the neighborhood, so to speak. And again, it should be said that this is all relative. I mean, LAFC, they were smashing it relative to LA Galaxy, but neither of them are really, capturing the consciousness of the wider sports public, which is what I think.
The wider sports public. I think that's the play. But I do think...
Or soccer-loving public,
I should say. the Latino population in Los Angeles, though, went to LAFC. Yeah. And it almost didn't matter. Like, people defected straight up from Galaxy fanship. Yeah. This, though, I think changes the discussion. And I think when you start to talk about, like, youth in marketplaces and, frankly, like, look at soccer ratings in America, like Liga MX, like,
destroys
the
MLS.
That just happened. Like, some of the numbers are insane.
They're better than NBA games.
Yeah. That was, I think I just saw that from one of the recent matches. But, like, you're, as far as Carson is, from downtown LA, that's going to be a really interesting situation from a TV rating standpoint, from an attendance standpoint, especially that they play in a relatively small house, from where Chicharito has been playing, obviously, on the international standpoint. It's just going to be interesting. And I'm curious to see, how, like, the media down there jumps on it.
Oh, it's going to be... the Spanish media, it's going to be insane.
Yeah. Like,
absolutely insane.
Yeah, what is it now? It's Telemundo.
Tudo.
Yeah. That's going to be nuts.
Yeah, it's been it's been leading like the Spanish language media pretty much all over Mexico and in Los Angeles, obviously. So I think that's what they really want, is to get, Zlatan was an international and national star. He would make appearances on Jimmy Kimmel and SportsCenter and all that stuff.
Like
and that stuff is great, but that's not where MLS's problem is. It's getting the local markets
London
more
Sports
relevant.
Talk was talking about his goals.
Yeah.
Like, he's just that kind of player.
Yeah. But this is about local markets getting local relevance from fans who haven't been paying attention to MLS or have been blowing it off.
So they don't play each other till May 16th at LAFC.
That's really good. That's a great way.
Good time.
Maybe to build it.
Sucks.
It's probably going to be on Fox is my guess, or ABC. There are some ABC matches. Yeah. So it'll be on national TV. For sure, and probably again, network television.
Again, Sunday, August 23rd at Galaxy.
So they've spaced them out, so those will be. I'll be watching them. I'm sure we'll all be checking them out, especially the first match. He's gonna pick up like casual fans though. Like it's just gonna change that. Yeah, it's gonna be again. I don't know casual sports fans, but casual soccer fans and. The Latino market who has not been paying attention to MLS is really where that's going to, especially in Los Angeles. That's just really where that's going to go.
The 2020 player jersey sales chart is going to have
Chicharito will be,
I'm going to guess.
Yeah, it's going to be Chicharito.
So, but when you think about international players, I mean, you've mentioned Zlatan, and we've talked about, some of the American players, Michael Bradley, Josie, whoever. Carlos Vela, just a different level of attention.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, I'm
ring
trying
the
to
bell.
think of like the last one that was like this. I mean,
I'd say Zlatan surely
Zlatan,
was
right?
Yeah, surely,
but even like Schweinsteiger is like mega popular, but people are like, nah. The NYCFC players, like the Lampard, like
and those were
Villa,
derided at the time. Villa, no.
But they sold some stuff.
Yeah.
What's that? Steven Gerrard sold a lot of jerseys.
Yes, he was a disaster for
that
the
was
Galaxy,
actually a huge thing when the first time that he played in Seattle, the amount of Liverpool kits in the stadium was like absurd.
I mean that's Rooney certainly moved the needle, but again those things kind of again those all petered out, and not as Zlatan obviously, but Rooney left after 18 months. Gerrard was a disaster on the field.
Right.
Left after 18 months. Pirlo, couldn't run in the last year and a half of his deal and barely played.
Though, in this 10-yard area that he played in on the field. But
Lampard left, and he started off, getting loaned back to Man City, and so came in and got booed in his first appearance. And so none of those really, Villa was certainly a great ambassador for the league, but didn't move the marketing needle per se. So Zlatan, I'd say Zlatan and Rooney to a lesser extent. Drogba in his first year was insane. And so you're right. This is definitely top 3, meaning of all time probably. Beckham being number one. Yeah. And then you could argue Zlatan or.
But that's where
number
now,
2.
if he plays a handful of years,
if he gives him 3 years
in LA, I don't know, that has scary potential.
3 years and brings a trophy. Then you've got, then maybe he even surpasses Beckham, although Beckham's far and away the leader just from a
and part
off
of that
the field.
was just the fact that it was the first one and so on and so forth.
And he won trophies too.
Yeah,
ultimately.
I mean, the league was a little more lightweight, like haves and have-nots.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas now,
Yeah, you got Atlanta.
Imagine if 10 years ago someone was like, "Yo, Atlanta's going to come in and be good." And you're like, "No, literally not going to happen." Jeremiah Oshan, best blog post of all time.
Yeah, it gets retweeted. It's about time for it to get retweeted, I'm sure.
So let's come back to Sounders. There's obviously a ton of other player speculation, things floating around.
Yeah.
Do you think it's probably like wait till CBA news and we're not going to hear a lot unless somebody just shows up on our doorstep?
No, I think if they get the deal that they're looking for, it won't impact the CBA won't impact their ability to go grab them, but they're not going to go grab 2 or 3 TAM players.
Yeah.
And not know what if TAM's going to exist, essentially, because I think Garth's worry is essentially that they sign where they have holes currently, a couple of TAM players, and then TAM goes away and the salary budget doesn't go up by a commensurate amount.
Yeah.
And then you're screwed because you're over the salary budget and you've got to basically unload players for pennies on the dollar.
And that's the part that's weird to me. It's like, well, you've seen stuff where they're like, "Oh, we use 2020 TAM." And I'm like, what if it doesn't exist? I mean, it's MLS, so it'll exist.
Yeah. I mean, the Players Association doesn't want it to exist. They hate TAM and would love to see it go away. And I don't think it's going to go away, but I can't be 100% sure of that. But again, that's what Garth's concerned about, and it's a fair shout. And the other teams that are spending money are by and large not good teams, or expansion teams who just have no salary on their books right now, so they can go sign someone for $500,000, TAM or no TAM, because you have to have a team, and that's not really a concern of theirs. So it's either terrible teams, or it's also DPs who are outside of the TAM issue, because this is all about the TAM level player.
Yep.
This is not about signing Chicharito as a DP, because DPs aren't going away. No one thinks they are yet. That article notwithstanding, and so that's not the problem. And the Sounders have 2 full-blown DPs, and they typically have used the third one as an accounting mechanism to be able to buy and move players around. And that's obviously worked because they had, I think we talked about this, I talked about this with somebody, the Sounders had TAM at every position except for goalkeeper out of their starting lineup. Fry was not TAM as far as we know.
Well, that was the thing where like the league wouldn't let Sounders pay Fry whatever he wanted, which, by the way, that's dumb.
Yeah. And I mean, he signed an extension at some point, and I'd have to go look and see what his salary is. But obviously, Ruidiaz is DP.
Yep.
Ladero DP. Roldan TAM. Morris TAM, or slightly. Yeah, I think he's TAM. And then the whole back line was TAM. Leardom, Arriaga, Kim, Torres, and then Smith was also TAM. So which is a great way to build depth and talent around the field, but you have to do some maneuvering to get that done, and that's why they didn't have the third DP is because of the third pure, above 1.5 DP.
It down.
Yeah, so they managed to fudge that down. So
what do you think of Kim conversation came up again last couple days?
Yeah,
still a possibility. It sounds like.
Yeah, I saw Nico said that, and Gonzalo Pineda was asked about that and said there's still a possibility. Garth did not seem to think there was a possibility. He was basically like, he has decided there are other options. We have an offer out there to him. He hasn't responded or responded unfavorably to it, and so his quote was like, "Yeah, I guess he has other options." That said, he has not signed with anybody.
I was like, he's just chilling.
Yeah,
so
he has not signed with anybody else, which means that he is either those offers haven't materialized or they're not where he wants them to be. And my guess, because he made a pretty penny, he was around 600,000 I think last year, and I'm guessing the Sounders would like to have him back at an under TAM level, or just at the 10 threshold where they can buy him down to a reasonable amount.
Like rumor though, and a lot of stuff in these situations, you'll see like weird buzz that like someone's agent has created on the internet.
Or he's
thanks Obafemi Martins.
Yeah, or he's in China or Saudi Arabia or something like that. And you're right. We haven't seen anything with maybe he's just private and that's the way he does business.
Sure.
And so, but we haven't even seen rumors pop up about him potentially signing somewhere. So I'm curious if he just really did not like what the Sounders had to offer, and therefore has decided I'm not going to come back because I felt disrespected.
Well,
that was kind of what happened with
considering
Torres.
He would be
to some
the
degree.
number one center back.
Yeah.
Like, Arriaga is not the number one center back. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't
He
know
has
if I
the
agree.
potential to be the number one center back. I don't.
Yeah. Well, okay, so
And
I
again,
think they're.
you got to see
I
a
don't
full
think they
season
were
of them
yeah.
to really understand it.
Yeah, I don't think they're thrilled with that partnership. I think that's
Those
a better
two.
way to put. Yeah, those two.
No, I agree.
So that's probably why they're probably not.
But there was clunk factor because it's like, oh, this person's injured, and then, oh, Chad Marshall's gone. Oh, and let's throw some center backs out there. And
I think
I
it's
don't know if
because
you had
there's
enough time to create chemistry, even though.
Yeah, I think it's also that they're kind of similar players,
Yes.
and neither of them are particularly great in the air, and banging with forwards. Whereas either if you had Torres or Marshall, one of them handled that load,
Right.
And so I think that's probably where that concern goes, and they just don't like that pairing, just because of the their physical attributes are
But
fairly
that's
similar.
But that's where, like, if you see the buzz on the player that they're
Yeah.
talking about,
It
they're
was
like, oh, yeah,
absolutely-
really strong, great marker, bad on the ball. And you're like, okay. I don't know if that's what we need, but
Yeah, well, Arriaga's pretty good in that. So
Yes.
you just need one,
you need somebody.
to compensate
Yeah.
for that. So that's just my guess. That's just my guess. I don't have any inside information on that. So I think that's probably why they'd be happy to have Kim back. They'd be thrilled to have him
sure.
back, but they.
I would say the Sounders community would be
Yes.
happy to have Kim
Yeah.
back. And again, this is all blunt speculation. Sam Rogers could turn out to be amazing in the
Yes.
next 2 months, and we're
Exactly.
not even having this discussion.
Yeah.
So,
And Rogers definitely has the physical profile that
Yeah.
they would like to pair with Arriaga. That'd be a really nice pairing if Rogers is ready, which we just don't know about yet.
So, again, they're going to play a friendly Wednesday, right, versus Peñarol.
Yes.
And it's a friendly. Like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to expect out of this.
I mean, it'll give them some information.
Yeah.
They'll probably, Rogers will certainly get some time in that game, and they'll try out some combinations. And, it's always a funky setup, too. It's like 3 30-minute periods or something like that, especially because they are only 2 weeks into training. So it's not like they're up to full fitness. Even though they got
Sounders
to
are
actually
play 1-0-9-1. See what
Is
happens.
it really clog the middle up?
Yeah.
Is-
Clog the middle.
is-
Don't let anyone get to a defender because they don't exist. So no, I'm curious. I mean, again, you're playing against a team that's at a different point in its season, which, friendly or not, is always interesting.
And you
It's
don't
like-
know what roster they're going to come
Right.
up with as well. If you're going to get the C team, then you may get less information or less useful information out of the session. But you'll get some information because it'll be a competitive scenario.
So I think at this point there's a lot of like Garth gonna Garth happening, compounded by the CBA
Yes.
situation. So I presume between now and, let's call it, the first week of February, I don't know if we're gonna see anything that's super, super notable, especially given what you just said.
And-
It's like, we're
and the
taking
se-
this week off.
Yeah, and the Sounders being out of town, which
Right.
means we can't go to practice and observe. And the games are
Who's
closed.
that trialist?
Yeah, and games are behind closed doors, so it's not like you'll be able to watch. So, and that's usually they're in some sort of tournament where the games are streamed, and so that's it's gonna be tough to get a lot of information, at least to observe. It's gonna require some sleuthing, I think, to find out where certain players are at.
So I think it's too early to get into like, let's make speculative predictions on the season and try to like see
Yeah.
some anything, frankly.
Yeah.
And can make some decisions. But anything else in Sounders land that you've been hearing about that we should be digging into?
No, because we talked mostly about the players, the young players. I think
Yep.
that's where the action is at this point. Sort of the CBA negotiations. Yes, there is the our traveling left back as well. That's the
Like on all fronts, he's traveling. He's
Yes.
like, oh, he's over there. Why are you
Yeah,
playing the right side all of a sudden?
Yeah. So Nuhu is apparently still in Cameroon or thereabouts. It doesn't appear to be the only thing I haven't heard that it's a visa issue. He has in the past. It definitely has been. It's been there have been problems.
I mean, I've read
a
couple places, heard from a couple people that it's like chance to make the roster, play in the cup in Africa. I don't know.
I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't appear to be a
But
visa
that's
issue.
probably just people going, I don't know.
Yeah. It is not a visa issue so far as I've heard at this point. So it may be him doing his usual
Every season ever.
and, I mean, even when he's been in camp, there have been there's been speculation that he has been agitating for a move abroad to France. Some of that not necessarily from anybody other than his camp, and so he signed with. When did he sign with the Sounders on the first team? I feel like it's 2017. He wasn't part of the championship team, was he? He was with S2, I think, at that point, or I just can't remember.
You know, we have this technology.
Yeah,
where
we can look
find
this
out
up. Let's look this up
information.
when
I'm
he
gonna
signed.
do that.
So he, either way, this is his third or fourth year with the first team, and then he had an additional year with S2. So he's probably coming up close to the end of his contract, and so he certainly wants and is probably entitled to a raise based on his contributions. Because again, he's making the minimum. So it's not like he's asking to go from 350 to 850. He's at like 60, and probably would like to go to around 200 or so.
Yeah, played 24 times with 2 in 2016.
So he signed in 2017.
Yeah.
So 2017, 2018, 2019. So yeah, he's probably on his option years or just about there. And so, I'm sure he wants a raise. And if he can't get a move, he wants to make more money. And again, he's probably entitled to more money based on play and potential and all that kind of stuff. So that might be factoring into why he's on a bit of a walkabout. The team doesn't seem to be particularly worried about it at this point, I would say. Again, we are still a month out from the season starting. And based on his videos and Insta and all that stuff, he's certainly keeping himself in good shape. So it's not like he's, sitting around, drinking Mai Tais and what have you. So he'll be here when he gets here. And I'm not going to worry about it because the team's not worried about
That's
it.
the question I was going to ask. Is like, are we worried about this? I don't know. This
The
is at
team
this point
was
predictable.
Like, I asked someone and they just kind of shrugged. And I think it was kind of like, well, that's Nuhu. And cue sitcom music.
It's very Nuhu gonna Nuhu.
Yes, I think that's
all right.
Yeah, I think that's it. So let's see what happens this week. And if he's not here by, I missed it. What is it?
Megan said she'd watch a sitcom. Would you say that's Nuhu? That's Nuhu. I have to tell you, I would watch that.
Yeah, it would probably be very
Sounders
entertaining.
FC Media Team, if you're watching, get on it.
Yeah, I would
New
say,
podcast.
I would say this week. Let's see what happens this week, and if he's not here at the start of camp next week, then questions need to be asked. Is there an issue we don't know about as far as visa or what have you, or is this something more serious? Because at that point you're like 3 weeks out, and it's either a visa issue or he's holding out, agitating for a move or more money, because there aren't many other options.
All right, I'm good with this. Carrie had posted it in the chat, but when we were outside the other day, someone came up with, "We're so good, we don't need center back," and we were told not to sing it to Garth by concerned, polite people.
Yes, I would say that is
It's a really good song.
It's a sore spot, certainly at this point, because he held a conference call.
Thanks, Carrie.
The day before the season was to start. And Jada, who is want to ask probing questions, definitely peppered him with a few about the roster.
Good.
And you could tell that Garth was agitated, not in a way that he was lashing out at her or anything like that, but just in a way that he's heard this question a million times and really doesn't want to answer it anymore. And you could tell in some of his comments as well, he references the center back issue. Like, yeah, you guys are going to ask me about the center back situation again, and just slides those in, which just lets you know
let's just go
he
three
hears
at the back.
it, and
it's fine.
Yes.
We'll just play one and a couple of outside backs, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, that might not be particularly ideal.
Let's not do that at all, ever. I don't know. A lot of these teams in MLS, like every once in a while somebody breaks out what looks like three back, and you're like,
well, the Sounders have played that with three center backs.
With three center backs, but I'm saying like not with outside backs, because our outside backs have, generally speaking, not wanted to stay back there.
Yes.
They're like, I want to be up there in this winger position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times did Nuhu run forward in that LAFC game?
Yes.
At the end of the game?
Yes, is the answer.
Yeah, granted, he almost scored and probably should have scored, and Smith probably should have centered the ball to get him to score. But, again, you don't want your center backs doing that typically.
No, not an ideal scenario. Any other Sounders news or speculation as you know it that we haven't covered?
No, I think it's just going to be tough to get more information this week because they are gone and there are no games that we're going to be able to watch. So we're going to have to
because the Peñarol is not visible anywhere.
Yeah, right? It's closed door. And then I think that even the Sacramento game up here is closed door. So they're not. I don't think they're participating in any games that will be streamed live this preseason, which is a departure because, again, they're usually in some sort of tournament. So that's
let's
unfortunate.
Be clear. Streaming for Sounders friendlies and other random away matches, not exactly something that works really well. They didn't. It's fascinating to me. Other teams do have this challenge. Like, I've seen it, and you're like, I have something in my pocket that will stream more effectively than this. I don't get it, but is what it is. I'm trying to think if there's anything else random I wanted to throw out. Michael Bradley.
Yes.
We briefly mentioned his overpaidness earlier. So today comes out that I think Torres was the player that may have had the contact with him in the MLS Cup final.
I was checking the Reddit and someone posted a highlight which seemed to indicate that Torres was a culprit, not in a malicious way.
Yeah.
Just
he had was ankle foot injury.
Yeah.
From MLS Cup, and today they were like, "Oh, he's going to have surgery." I'm like, "It's January 20th," and then Josie apparently made some comments, and he is, let's just say, displeased.
Yeah. So I read those reports, and the follow up was that their team president Ali Curtis basically said that they had hoped to rehab his injury through the off season and avoid surgery, which if you can avoid surgery, that's certainly a preferable option, but it's not preferable if it doesn't work, because now he's going to be out for a considerable amount of time. The question I would have is that is a long time to try to hope to rehab an injury to get it back, and if he had the surgery right away, he would be missing maybe a month of the season.
Maybe.
Yeah. And now he's going to be out until June, essentially, because there's going to be some time he needs to get fit. So they rolled the dice on that, and it didn't work. It came up snake eyes. And so again, it would be worse if he was on that big contract. Of course, if he's on that big contract, they may have said have the surgery, so we are assured that you're going to be back and only missing a month of the season. But that's a tough blow for them. And I didn't read Josie's comment specifically. Maybe you did, except to say that he was not pleased with how they handled it. He's had problems with either the front office or the training
staff. He's been off and on injured for a long time.
Well, remember when Giovinco moved overseas? he had an issue with the trainer that
Yeah.
that Giovinco had, and he wanted to retain him because he liked him. And then there was some issue with he thought that Toronto had fired him and told him not to come back. Although it turns out that I think they were just trying to negotiate a new deal with him.
I don't have the whole pull quote,
So-
but the quote that made it into this one tweet from someone at the Sun was that it was, quote, was mishandled.
Yeah, which is
Like, that's a pretty specific thing to say.
yeah. So that the question there is, did they wait too long to make this determination? Should they have, after say 2 weeks of trying to rehab, determined that this isn't responding to our treatment, so let's just bite the bullet now and have the surgery? Or if they just decided that, well, let's give it 6 weeks or 6 weeks or 2 months, and then we'll make our decision. I have no idea, but Josie certainly has had those concerns about how TFC has handled the front office.
Well,
has
and
handled those types of things.
Josie, frankly, and the U.S. national team, like Bradley and Josie have access to both the national team medical folks and their own club's medical folks, and you still ended up here. And again, TFC's paying the bills, so that's probably why they're leading the charge on this particular thing. But like, I mean, frankly, from a national team standpoint, this is good because the fact that he's still bossing the middle
that's
needed to change.
Well, and
So
actually,
they're going to have to try something different now for the
I
next
think
6
Toronto.
months.
Yeah, I think Toronto's fans are thinking the same thing. There's a player that they like. I think his last name is Frazier, who's young defensive midfielder. They were like, all right, well, now he's going to get time to play
Well, is that
and
the player
show
that
what
is
they want.
Canadian?
I believe so.
Yeah, because I read something today where they're like, that guy's not getting released to go play.
Yeah, exactly. So I think so they don't seem too broken up on it over it as well. I think they're just frustrated that he's not going to be available. Again, this would be much worse if he was a DP
For sure.
and they weren't able to buy. At least if the worst happens and he's out for the year or something like that, they can still buy his salary down and pick up a new DP. Whereas if he was a full-on DP, they'd be absolutely screwed. And so they seem to be taking it in stride, given the situation. It's just unfortunate.
Any other round the league things that were interesting? Thing for me popped out was the Miami team.
I was going to say Miami
had put out their song lists, and everything's in Spanish, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's gonna be as interesting as we think it's gonna be, and have been talking about for all the years at this point.
Yeah, the Inter Miami, just the entire experience is going to be fascinating to watch. They're playing in Fort Lauderdale. That stadium seems to like it's going to be there on time. I think it's going to be close, but I think those modular stadiums do go up pretty quickly. I think Vancouver is theirs is less fancy, or was less fancy, but they got that thing up in 6 months or whatever it was, and Miami's had about 8 or 9. So that's going to be interesting. I'm obviously more interested in the political machinations, them trying to get their stadium built in Miami proper. But I've heard some complaints about how they're not delivering on the promised big name DPs that they were talking about, and they absolutely promised the top of the line DPs. But do those really exist outside of Messi, Neymar, and Ronaldo, and Chicharito, who's now
but are
gone?
you looking at that? I mean, to me, Chicharito's on a different level than those players,
and he was never going to go to Miami.
But from a name recognition standpoint, is very much out there. I guess having seen what Orlando had done, where the ownership group was they're from Brazil.
Yes,
if I remember correctly,
De Silva or something.
I actually remember looking at jobs. You needed to speak Portuguese if you wanted to be in their communications department. They were trying to play towards that community. It will not surprise me if they're able to bring in somebody from a Peñarol or somewhere else in Argentina or wherever.
Oh yeah, I don't.
That's gonna happen. So when we think about global names, does that really mean regional or?
I took it to mean.
You think I mean
top of the line? One of the again the big names that are remaining.
They missed out on Alexis Sanchez, who now is actually good.
Good.
Weird.
Yeah. How do you get out of Manchester United these days? It's
Once you leave Manchester United, all of a sudden you're good again.
Yeah, that's which is sad to say for them. But I mean, that's just how I took it, and that's kind of how they pitched it. But if they're, I think it's just that's.
Do you think they are waiting on CBA too, though, or do you think that doesn't really matter?
I don't think that matters for them because again,
because you need them this window.
Yeah,
right.
And that's what they're. I can't remember his name, McDonald or McDougall. Who's their technical director, is basically saying we want them in now because with the Copas and the Euros, if you're getting them in the summertime, and you're talking about big names, they're surely going to be on their national teams. It's August at the earliest, and that means the season is, especially with the new calendar for MLS scheduling, the season's essentially over at that point. You've got like 7 to 8 games, and they're going to need some time to integrate. So you're talking. Maybe 4 or 5 games potentially that you have them available. So I think they're going to want to get theirs done early. I don't know who's available on the superstar list. So you may be right. They may go for someone who is a high dollar player. They're just not going to have the
global cachet or whatever. Yeah.
And to be fair, Atlanta didn't go that route, and they turned out fine.
It worked out okay.
So if Miami comes out of the gates storming and then wins a bunch of games, and they're playing an attractive brand of soccer like Atlanta was in those first 2 years, then they won't care. They'll be happy with it. But if they struggle, and you've got a couple of like, who are these guys? Then maybe they that doesn't work out so well. But
that's the thing where like
we'll see.
If it works in your local regional, does it matter? Like if you're just good and you're like, who's Joseph Martinez?
Yes.
Oh my God, that guy's devastating. You know, like Carlos Vela, different animal, and like they were going in a particular direction.
Yeah.
But like Americans and Canadians had no clue who Piatti was, and the guy's destructive. Just like powerhouse player. So do you just have to make the right move that makes your team good, and then all of a sudden you've built the brand?
It's got to be. That? I mean, you just have to do one of those two things. You either need to have the like global superstar, global superstar, or be good out of the gates. Preferably, you can do both. But one of those things needs to happen, especially in Miami, which is fair to say is a town that thrives on either high entertainment or high level stars.
I'm good. 10,000 more of these. Did you see? We talked about Zlatan earlier, but we hadn't talked about anything else. That he picked 21, and he apparently said, "I picked 21 because Ronaldo's in this league, and I'm 3 times better than him. If he wears 7."
That's tremendous.
And I was like, even if you didn't say that, and someone just made that up, I'm okay with it.
It's a fantastic quote.
He would actually probably, if somebody made that up, because I've seen Italian newspapers before, and they make a lot of things up. Even if someone make that up, he would be like, yes, I definitely said that.
I'm incorporating that into my quote. You can now quote me on that non-quote.
That's an amazing quote.
Yeah.
If real or not.
Yeah.
Like, it's super funny. Zlatan. I'm both going to miss and totally not miss Zlatan. Yeah. Do you think that Thierry Henry will coach on turf?
I'm fairly certain he was contractually obligated to do so.
He has to.
Yes.
Although, have you seen the things where people are like, EPL teams want Thierry Henry, or like a couple of French teams are like, let's bring him in as coach. I'm like, let him coach one match in Montreal before that happens. Like,
yeah, I mean that'll be interesting to see because he obviously was a massive flame out at Monaco.
I mean, not that Monaco's good.
Yeah, I mean, they used to be, a quality side, but they've obviously struggled recently. But that'll be interesting. I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing how Montreal does. Only because of Henry. They, I don't know if there's much else of interest up there besides Piatti. Depending, we'll see how he's getting up there. So
there's poutine, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The croissants are really good, to be fair.
I can't eat croissants.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
But they're good.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words for a Monday evening?
No. I think we have to get through this week. I think is the best way to put it.
I mean, that's generally how I feel about life.
Yeah, yes.
Like,
also fair. Well, I'm trying more on the
arbitrary
minute by minute schedule
units that we've for some reason created, and
that's way too far ahead even. So,
like 48-hour units.
Yeah, just make sure I get home.
Good. It's not even precipitating.
Yeah. But again, seriously, I would say get through this week. We'll see where the CBA is. If anything develops during this quiet week, and then we'll see. Try to get at least some information from the Sounders. They're supposed to put out a new roster here soon, as far as like players who they may have decided to leave behind or cut outright. They've got a couple of draft picks which we didn't really talk about. Is this an actual thing or is this a markup? Oh, I mean, I like it. It's.
I'm here for checkers.
Yes. Oops, sorry. As I almost destroy your phone. I don't know if people can see this on the stream, but it's a nice. It's although the stripes don't really go with it, but
Someone was like, checkers.
yes. I mean, I kind of like that look.
I'm really excited for the fact that Sounders, Minnesota, and like 5 other teams all have the same kit this season.
Yeah,
It's fun.
Yeah, maybe that'll be our next show is just trashing Adidas.
If Adidas wasn't spending so much money on Beyonce, we could have unique kits.
Yeah.
In
I'm
MLS.
pretty sure that Adidas just spends this money just so nobody else can take the deals.
That is probably what it is. Throw in the last minute question there. Thoughts on Reign FC's coaching and branding? Branding, dig it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have any problem with the what they're doing there. I would like to dig in a little bit more on that because it's very we just don't have have enough information to really comment on it at this point.
Yeah, I think we need to see some real stuff.
Yeah.
As far as coaching goes,
not great, Bob. They've announced the coach, right?
that did happen.
Yes,
right?
they formally announced the coach.
The player commentary is not good.
No. So I'm hoping. I know Sounder Hart has done a 2-part interview series, and I'm going to read that tomorrow while I'm doing some work. And I'm interested in seeing or hearing kind of the explanation, how they work through that process, and just why they, in light of the backlash.
Yeah.
If any assurances have been made to kind of clean that up, because it certainly could use some cleaning up.
No, she's not going to throw anyone under the bus, but
Maybe we should try to get Jess back on the show.
I mean, I'm super okay with that.
Although, not that she would comment on that specifically, but just
I
she enjoyed her appearance last
She
time.
says her things.
Yes.
No, I honestly don't know if I have enough information to go too far, especially on the branding front. I think we need to sort of see where that goes.
Another thing to take a look at this week.
I do think something. I could see it not being Seattle. But I do think that the ownership shift is good in the long run.
Based on what Predmore said, it sounded like they had taken it about as far as they could.
And that's not even an anti-Predmore. That's just this changes the dynamic when you talk about like global football overall and attracting like super, super serious talent. Because,
and resources.
Like, criticize all you want what like City does. That works for them both in men's and women's football, from a, where to shift talent and sending people to Melbourne and like other places. Like, it's just interesting. I'm curious to see if you start to see that kind of dynamic with Reign.
I'll be interested to see what changes are coming down the pike. So should be interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll be back next week with maybe Sounders news. Who knows? We may or may not have more players or know anything at all.
Yes.
In general, not just about Sounders.
Yes.
Just us. We may or may not know anything.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching and have a good rest of your week.